In this video tutorial, I am going to discuss about classification of fatty acid. This classification of fatty acid is important because there are so many different types of fatty acid in our body, so the classification of this molecule become necessary. So there are several ways of classification of fatty acid. The first way of the classification of fatty acid is the based on number of carbon in fatty acid. So first way is the based on number of carbons in fatty acid, right? So based on this number of carbons in fatty acids are basically divided into three groups. The first group is the short chain fatty acid. Okay, so this is also known as SCFA. This is popular and accepted short form. So whenever in the future videos, whenever this is required, I will write only SCFA. Okay, and short chain fatty acids are between 2 carbon length to the 6 carbon length. Okay, the second group is the medium chain fatty acid. And in the medium chain fatty acid, the length of carbon, the number of carbons in the fatty acid are C8 to C14. Okay, and the short form for this medium chain fatty acid is MCFA. The third group is long chain fatty acids. The long chain fatty acid contains the fatty acid having more than C16, more than 16 carbon, right? So the short form for this long chain fatty acid is LCFA. Now in some book, there is also one subgroup of this long chain fatty acid is there, and that is very long chain fatty acid. Very long chain fatty acids. So this short form for this is VLCFA. These all short forms, this SCFA, MCFA, LCFA, VLCFA, all are important one and they are commonly used short form. Okay. Now for the very long chain fatty acid, carbon length, some book says that carbon length should be more than 20 and some book says that carbon length should be more than 22. Okay. So different books suggest different thing. So we need to write this both numbers. Okay. So this classification is based on the number of carbon in the fatty acid, right? The second way of classification of fatty acid, is based on the presence of double bond. It is based on the presence of double bonds. So based on the presence of double bond, fatty acids are divided into two groups. The first group is the saturated fatty acid, and the second group is the unsaturated fatty acid. So in the saturated fatty acids, there are no double bonds. Okay, and like as this fatty acid is fully saturated with the hydrogen atoms, there are no any double bonds. Okay, whereas in unsaturated fatty acid, some of the hydrogens are removed. They are made unsaturated by the hydrogen bond. Okay, so unsaturated fatty acids are the fatty acid having one or more than one double bonds. Okay, Now this unsaturated fatty acid is further divided into two groups. The one group is monounsaturated fatty acid. It is also known as MUFA. And the second one is polyunsaturated fatty acid. So its short form is PUFA. Okay, PUFA. Now as in this monounsaturated fatty acid, as there is this word mono, that means more than, one double bond. Exactly one double bond is present. In polyunsaturated fatty acid, poly means more or equal to 2. So 2 or more double bonds are present. 2 or more double bonds are there. Okay, so this classification is based on the presence of double bond. Now there are certain different types of fatty acid which are not classified. So we can call it as a unclassified fatty acids. So there are many different groups of unclassified fatty acid, like a branch chain fatty acid, cyclic fatty acid, substituted fatty acid, hydroxy fatty acids. All these different kinds of unclassified fatty acids are there. But as far as human biochemistry is concerned, we are concerned with only one type of fatty acid, and that is a branched chain fatty acids. It is branched chain fatty acids. So generally in naturally what happens, most of the fatty acids are a straight chain, okay, are a straight chain. But there are certain rare incidents where the branched chain fatty acids are important, and two different branched chain fatty acid examples are there which are important for human biochemistry. The first example is phytanic acid. Now this phytanic acid, instead of this naturally occurring straight chain fatty acid, they contain branches, and these branches are mostly of the methyl group. So why this phytanic acid is important? Because phytanic acid is mainly found in dairy products. It is mainly found in dairy products, and especially in the butter. So whenever we consume a diet, we are taking a phytanic acid in our diet, right? And why it is important to know that phytanic acid is taken up by our diet? Because there is one disease which is known as Refsum's disease. It is Refsum's disease. In Refsum's disease, what happens is there is a defect in the catabolism of phytanic acid. There is a defect in catabolism of phytanic acid. So what will happen? So if there is a defect in the catabolism of phytanic acid, what will happen? This phytanic acid will start accumulate. It accumulates in plasma as well as tissue, various tissues. Okay. The more biochemical aspects of this Refsum's disease will be covered under the fatty acid, under the lipid metabolism. Okay. So right now just remember that Refsum's disease is because of the defect in catabolism of phytanic acid, and so phytanic acid accumulates in plasma and tissue. The second important branch chain fatty acid, the second important branch chain fatty acid is mycolic acid. It is mycolic acid. Now what is mycolic acid and why it is important for human biochemistry? Because this mycolic acid, it is present in cell wall of Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It is present in cell wall of Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So in Mycobacterium tuberculosis, in its cell wall, there is one particular substance is there. Its name is given as a code factor. It is a code factor. This code factor is actually made up of mycolic acid. Mycolic acid is there in the structure of this code factor, and in the code factor, this mycolic acid is responsible for the virulence of this bacteria. It is responsible for virulence of this Mycobacterium tuberculosis bacteria. Okay, so we had seen three different kinds of classification of fatty acid. So with this, I complete my classification of fatty acid. If you have any query or confusion, please write it down in the comment section below. Please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.